All right, we are back with the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully. Thank you guys for tuning in. Joined by Gordon Back. The question everybody wants to know: did you survive the hike, Gordon?
I did survive the hike. The bigger hike though is going to had to be pushed to today because we messed up our schedules. So it was just a normal hike. But the hike down, I went down 2,000 meters in 90 minutes, and I went up 2,000 meters in not meters, feet, 2,000 feet in 90 minutes, and I went up 2,000 feet in like 82 minutes. So a negative split the uphill. So that's pretty good. A negative split the uphill. Gotta take that.
I was going to ask, 2,000 meter descent would be pretty intense, but I never question anything with your physical gifts. There's few in the world like you, Gordon, when it comes to endurance athletes. But the real hike is today. Okay, I thought you were going to do it yesterday. So
yeah, we were, but scheduling. The real hike's today, but here's the problem now. So this real hike today is like a bouldering type hike. So you're like on boulders, and it's not safe.
Right.
Or I guess it's safe, but not safe. It's dangerous. They say it's dangerous, but it's raining. And so they say you're not supposed to do it when it's wet. But this is our last day here. So
gotta make it happen,
try
right?
to do it. So maybe we might die. So that's the thing. So if there's no podcast tomorrow, you'll know why. That's how you know. If I don't log in at 9:02 a.m., you'll know. Gordon didn't make it. So
okay, I'll still do the podcast.
You should text me. You should text me tonight at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Be like, did you make it? Because if I don't respond, there's a chance I didn't make it.
All right, I'll do that right now. I'll do that right now. Hey Siri, remind me to text Gordon at 8 p.m.
Okay, your reminder is set for this evening.
Okay, good. All right, we're good. So we're ready to roll.
Yeah, and then not, then call my next of kin.
And I just dropped my phone and almost broke it. That would have been a really weird way to break your phone. Oh, I actually did. I cracked the corner of my phone trying to do a goof on a podcast. It's all your fault, Gordon. Wow. Things can't get worse over here in my house after moving and everything falling apart. Let's start the show, though. D2, D3 fall championships are canceled. D1, we're still waiting for your favorite group of people, those board of governors, Gordon. They're good at postponing decisions, but D2 and D3 just went ahead and made the decision anyway. What was your reaction to those decisions yesterday?
I mean, it makes sense. The D2 and D3 are not, there's no reward to the risk, right? There is reward in D1, the money, but there's no reward in the D2, D3. So when you compare reward risk factor, it's just all risk. So might as well just not take the risk if there's no reward on the other side. And I know the reward technically is, these student athletes, the experience they have. I mean, I'm a D3 athlete, so I would be furious if my season got canceled. However, I wouldn't be that furious because I was an 800, 400 meter runner. So cross country getting canceled, it's kind of like, oh, phew. It's kind of nice. You don't have to wake up early on a Saturday morning to get 250th place. It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, you got to feel for these athletes, especially a lot of D3 and D2 athletes. They don't do the whole fifth year come back. A lot of it's we're here for 4 years, we're in and out, and taking away basically 25% of your potential out of the, out of consideration for a lot of these top cross country athletes and teams. It sucks. So, I mean, I feel for my my alma mater, Johns Hopkins. I mean, the women have been dominating, right? They've won 6 of the past 8. And the men, this was the year that the men were on all cylinders and could have potentially podiumed, maybe even won, which has been wild because I remember when I was there from 2007 or 2006 to 2009 or 2010, we couldn't even qualify for the national meet. We maybe had one individual qualifier, maybe had in 2 of the 4 years. That's about it. And now the women are dominating and the men are getting better. So you got to feel for, this happens a lot, right? It's always this is the year. This is the year we're all seniors. This is the year when we're ready to go on all cylinders, and it just gets taken from you. So it sucks. You got to feel for the D2, D3 teams, the coaches, just the whole situation. It sucks. Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing else to say, right? It's just a sucky situation.
Yeah, it's something you never anticipate happening a couple months ago. Now, even this summer, people were optimistic of it coming back. For Division I, well, for all these divisions, the standard now is 50%. If 50% or more of the teams in your sport cancel, then they're going to call off the fall championships. So they're not going to make the call themselves. It seems like they're going to wait, right? They're just they're setting another standard where it's just like, okay, well, if so many teams make this decision on their own, or so many conferences make this decision on their own, then we are making the decision for you. But it seems after now we're on the third delay that the NCAA doesn't want to actually make that call themselves. They want to leave it up to the conferences and the individual universities.
Yeah, and that 50% number, I think, in cross country, it's kind of scary. I mean, right now we're at there have been 26.5% of the women's team have canceled, and 27.8% of the men's team. So we're not at 50% there, but we're halfway to that 50% mark. Now, but here's the thing though. A large percent of like cross country teams we don't even know exist, right? Because like there are a lot of cross country teams that actually compete, but they all don't even bother showing up to regionals. But they technically are part of the pool of we are a cross country school because there are a total of 316 men's programs, 346 women's. So check this out. So take the men, 27.8% have canceled. That's 88 teams out of 316. However, of the top 100 teams, like, so if you would take just like, hey, we are a top 100 program based on where they finished at the regional last year and at nationals, only 16% of the top 100 teams canceled. So 27% of all teams canceled, but only 16% of the top 100 teams. And really only like, what is it? Only 2 of the top 30 teams have canceled, right? Which is Iona and Harvard. So there could be a situation where all the bottom teams, like all the teams from the SWAC and the MEAC and the Southland Conference and the Ohio Valley Conference, not talking about Eastern Kentucky and
well, all those ones in the Northeast that you've talked about too, right?
All the ones in the
all the remaining ones that haven't canceled yet. There's still some in the Northeast up there, right? They could cancel.
Yeah. So like, it's just like, if we could still have a good cross country season if like all the best teams are still there, but we could have all these bad teams canceling that can then prevent the good teams from being able to compete, which I could see happening because we're at 27%, we're only 23% away, maybe actually 22% away because it's basically 28% now. So it is going to be interesting. What were we going to say?
I was just going to say, I don't think it's going to get to August 21st. I think that deadline is far enough in the future to where they don't need to make a decision. I think it was chosen for that specific reason.
Oh, so you think that the conferences are going to pull out, then causing it to get canceled?
Yeah, because look, by August 21st, a lot of kids are going to, classes need to start, right? People coming into dorm, like they're going to need to make decisions for planning purposes, let alone from a training perspective and meet planning perspective. If you're a cross country program, they're not going to want to wait that long, right? This has gone on long enough. I feel like you heard people say, when are they going to need to make a decision about football for them to have a season? I think beginning of July at the absolute latest. Now we're in the beginning of August and they're saying not the end of August. I think that the whole strategy here is for them not to make the decision. Again, I go back to the winter season and indoors. They waited. And it wasn't until literally teams are walking out the Albuquerque Convention Center, leaving the venue, that they then decide, winter championships are canceled, when basically no teams were left. So I think they're going to wait until everybody makes a decision for them. I think that's what this signaled to me when they say, August 21st when they say things like 50%, when they say things like we're still going to honor scholarships, that's still giving a way for them to allow athletes to maintain their status at the school, even if there aren't any sports. All those things, I think, lead me to believe that we're going to have a resolution before August 21st, but it's not going to come from up top.
So I'm going to do some quick math here.
Okay, good. I'll try to break my phone some more while you do that. I'll go open the calculator
plus
app.
130 is. Oh, okay. So we have so I think the reason why they did that 50%. I mean, so the idea of like how we float around with like a Power 5 only championship work, right? There are not enough Power 5 teams to make up more than 50% of the total, right? And
right.
If a bunch, like I looked at the numbers, if a bunch more of, even if you take Power 5 plus Group of 5, so like Power 5 plus like Mountain West plus AAC plus whatever, it still won't. It would still not cross the 50% threshold. So meaning, if, like I said, the Atlantic Suns, the Big Souths, the Big Wests, the Conference USAs, the Horizon Conference, if they all decide to scrap it, cross country is going to get scrapped itself because they won't be able to hit that 50% threshold. So keeping track of that number up until August 21st will be key. Like I said, we're at 26% for women, 27% for men. It would be wild. What if like only one gender gets it, right? It's like the women are just under 50% and the men are just over 50%. That'd be wild. That's the chaos I want, right?
Didn't with this decision, didn't the NCAA essentially say you can't have Power 5 only championships? They're not going to endorse them. I mean, you could do them and call them something else, but they are not going to endorse them because that would be fewer than 50% of the teams, right? Like,
they basically subtweeted Power 5.
Yeah, I mean, you could but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. What if only 40% cancel, right? Only 40% cancel. But then the Power 5 decides to do their own championship. Is that allowed? Because technically, the other ones didn't cancel. They just didn't get invited to this championship that they've created. Isn't that, in a way, what would they do then? Would they say this is the NCAA championships? This is the Power 5 championships? I just don't. I don't know what the end goal here is, and I don't know why they don't just make a decision. How
many coaches in the Power 5, like legitimate coach? By legitimate, I mean coaches that have teams that are good. So like,
name the illegitimate coaches.
Mark Wetmore, Andy Powell, Lance Harder, all these top.
Those are the legitimate ones.
Yeah, the legit. You know what I mean. I'm saying Power 5 coaches, where they have teams that are good that can be top 10.
Yes.
How do you think they would feel about competing in a championship without NAU and BYU there, or New Mexico? They know they would be like, this isn't real.
Right. Yes. But I think if the option was that or nothing this year, I think they would say, well, let's compete. Let's just go out there, compete. We'll run some meets. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll cross our fingers and hope that we can do indoor or we can do outdoor or we can do next year's cross country season. I think they would still do it. I don't know what they would call it. And I don't know how they would feel about winning in that type of setting. The meet would still be good. Happen, though,
BYU and NAU would dominate for the next 5 years because they would just redshirt everyone and be like, boom, we're back for an extra year. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
BYU, you know what they should do? This is what, if that does happen, you need Ed Eyestone and Mike Smith to put together their own dual meet. And if there's going to be a Power 5 championship, they're going to be like, well, we're going to do the who actually would have won championship and just have a dual meet between BYU and NAU and have it the same day as the Power 5 championship and just see who would. That would be great. And they'll be like, loser of this dual meet would have got second at NCAAs is what they'll say. That's what they should do.
Would New Mexico get invited? Could you do like a women's race too?
Yeah. But who would New Mexico face? Who's like I guess BYU.
BYU and NAU. And NAU are good. They're still good.
Yeah. So just make it a try meet. Make it a try meet. Boom.
Yeah. Oh.
Invite Portland too. That'll be fun.
Rob Connors entered
live
the
chat. On Flow. Live on Flow. This is great. We're doing it. This is gonna be great. We'll have a whole little trophy, like the
the
people's
non-power
champ.
five.
We'll call them the people's champ.
Yeah. The powerless five. I'm here for it. I mean, we got some response to the discussion about if a Power 5 championship is a Power 5 championship. Someone put up, well, it'd still be a great meet, right? Because Arkansas is good, Stanford's good, Washington, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times Power 5. Yeah, and I'm not disputing that it would be a good meet. I'm just saying, given the current construct of how NCAA cross country is right now, it would not be a true champion because of the teams that we just mentioned. That's all I'm saying. Would I tune into the meet? Sure. Would I be interested in the results? Absolutely. In the same way I'm interested in a lot of cross country meets. Exactly. I would tune into it the way I tune into other cross country meets where not everybody in the NCAA is present. And maybe if this was a different decade where there weren't so many prominent non-Power 5 teams, it would be different. And I'd say, yeah, you know what? That meet did have the top 10 teams. But in no way, shape, or form would that be the case in 2020. We know enough about the 2020 teams to know that non-Power 5 teams would perform very well. Did you drop your phone now too? What's going on down there?
You don't want to know. It's fine.
Okay. Did you get a text?
Users don't need to know. No, I didn't get a text. No. It has nothing to do with technology. It's fine.
Okay.
It has to do with my knee, so it's fine. It's fine.
Uh-oh. Did you tear your meniscus while podcasting? Okay. So
I tell you though, hiking the number my knees and hiking is not good. It's not good for my knees.
Well, don't, because you went down 2,000 feet. So that's here's the thing. When you get old, the downhills really start to wreak havoc on you. You got to avoid the downhills. That's my advice. Which means you kind of got to either avoid the uphills or get airlifted down. One of the two.
All right.
50% is what you're saying. Keep an eye on 50% between now and August 21st. I think we're going to see something between today and tomorrow. We're going to see another move here. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily all the way to Division I canceling non-football fall championships, but we could maybe see another UConn type move where an FBS team decides not to do any sports at all for the duration of the year. I think that's what.
No one wants to say it though, but like UConn pulled out because they had no one to play against because they were an independent school. So, like, I know that's like a big deal. Oh, first FBS school to pull out. And it's like, well, they pulled out because they weren't invited in a weird way. You know what I mean? Like if all the schools are conference only and they didn't really have anyone to play, it kind of it was just like a loss. It was like, all right, why are we even doing this? I think that was a bigger reason why they pulled out than health. I mean, health is always a factor, but the press release is going to say health, but internally it's like, we have no one to play.
Well, don't you think they could have scheduled people? Like all these other teams that have holes in their schedule, don't they?
Yeah, they have holes in their schedule, but all their holes in their schedule are probably in the same 3-week period.
Yeah, I think they could have made it. I think they could have made it work if they wanted to, but I think what you mentioned earlier is true. It comes back to just a cost-benefit analysis of it, and they ultimately weighed it and said it wasn't worth it. Yeah. Because
they're probably like, we could have a schedule of Alabama, Clemson, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, just play all the big teams because they all need that
money.
Extra. Go 0-10, but then make like $10 million.
BYU's an independent, and I know right as of now, Alabama has scheduled them or wants to schedule them, if they're allowed to. But BYU's in a tough spot. Notre Dame got adopted by the ACC, but Notre Dame is a bit more prominent in football than UConn.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, keep going.
So
tell me more
D2,
about
D3 can't. No. Well, do you have it? I feel like, again, Twilight Zone, man. I feel like we talk about this all the time. At least we have some definite in the D2, D3 landscape getting canceled. One thing I noticed, though, kind of going under the radar is a lot of these conferences have kind of like laid out their protocol rules for how they're going to deal with COVID. And it does not seem like it's going like, it just doesn't seem like your top 7 are going to stay your top 7. And that like, there's so many opportunities for your top 7 to not be your top 7 with like the testing needs. And like, you need to have like two negative tests before every away game. And it's like, well, cross country's like, all right, You got to have two. It's just like it's not gonna.
Yeah,
I just don't see it working. I think there's gonna be if you show any signs of
Are you talking about rules put in place by the conference or by the
conferences?
NCAA?
Like I looked up ACC's rules, and I just couldn't see a cross country team being able to pass all that in a cross country season.
Yeah,
like it's more designed for like a football season.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the other way this gets canceled without someone having directly saying it is canceled. You put in these rules and regulations that are really difficult to follow, and then a school says, "Listen, I don't think we can follow these in a financially responsible manner, or I don't think we could follow these just in a logistics from a logistics perspective." One other point I want to make on D2, D3, in both of the releases, they mentioned they explored the option of spring, but they determined that was not possible to go ahead, because I know we heard about that before with the shifting potentially the football season to the spring and the fall sports to the spring. We spent time on this podcast talking about indoors being at the same time, or cross country being at the same time as indoors, or cross country being at the same time as outdoors in the spring. But at least for D2 and D3, they ran the numbers and decided that was not worth it. And I think part of it is because they said in one of the releases, they essentially said, well, but they got their championship last year and winter and spring didn't. So we're really working hard to make sure winter and spring get their championship. So the priority, okay, if you got screwed over last year, we want to make sure you get one championship. And if you had yours last year, you got the short straw this time. But I thought it was interesting that they said that they looked at spring and it was a no-go.
Yeah. Do you think I just don't see how we're going to be in any different environment in January. Like we're not. Like just because
that's a legitimate fear.
Just because the last number of the year goes from a 0 to a 1 doesn't mean the virus disappears. Like it's just not how it works, right? So everyone
well, that's probably what they were looking at. That's probably what they factored into them saying that they're not going to do spring, is because they're like, there's no guarantee it's going to be better in the spring. And even if it is better, we need to be able to have money to put on the sports, and we need to have personnel, trainers, all sorts of people accessible, and they can't be spread between 10 sports. We need them focused on a couple sports. Yeah. I don't think anyone, you always bring this up, I don't think anybody is arguing that it's going to be magically better. All they know is that it's not good now. So they're not saying, hey, we are mandated to play in the spring. They're just saying, hey, right now doesn't work. It's just like when I invite you to go out and get a drink and you're like, oh, I'm busy tonight. How about next week? It's not a guarantee that next week you're not going to be busy and you're going to stand me up again like you do all the time. It's just that it's a possibility,
Well, I think it's because all the headlines say delay, postpone, delay, postpone, delay, postpone. I'm like, that's implying you're delaying to a better date. And it's like, you don't know that date's better. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and that's PR, right? That's with all these major road races and stuff, right? It's been postponed to 2021. No, you canceled it, right? Starting with the very first one. Remember World Indoors? Remember that meet way back in March? And they're like, we're postponing this. And I'm like, okay, when are they postponing it? They're going to move the meet to 2021. I said, well, that's more than a year away. We would call that a cancellation. And they use the word cancellation with UConn. They use the word cancellation with D3 and with D2 because they have no intention of trying to make up the season any other time. But I think that's public relations. That's trying to put a positive spin on it of, hey, we'll get it back at some point. The Olympics were postponed, right? The 2020 Olympics were postponed to 2021, and they'll be still called the 2020 Olympics, right?
If you're the best Division III runner in the nation or the best Division II runner in the nation, distance runner, do you enter the portal to try to transfer a D1 school?
Now, no. I don't know why you would.
If you find out that, is there a deadline for portal transferring? Is there like a? Can you
I don't know. My sources in the portal are few and far between nowadays.
If you know for sure that there is going to be a Division I championship, and you're the best D2 or best D3 athlete, do you transfer to get a season in? Because to have competition, like you're not going to have competition, you have nothing, right? You just like you're gonna be sitting on your butt.
You said
like just.
You said if you're guaranteed a season with D1, yeah, but what? You're not guaranteed a season with D1 though.
If you Power 5, you might be guaranteed, right? Because you're like, hey, they're gonna do it no matter what, right?
I think you just train. If you're a senior, you're training really hard, and if you're really, really good, you're trying to get a contract. That's the end goal here, right? Anyway, and you can, luckily, distance running at least, and even sprinting, you can do a lot of that on your own. You can enter meets when they're available. I just upending your whole life to move to maybe get one season. That seems stiff. Plus, if you're at a school like Johns Hopkins, I mean, nothing replaces that degree. You could end up as a content person on FloTrack with a Johns Hopkins degree for several years.
I'm really marketing that degree well. My life choices. You know what would be kind of cool? Maybe we should do this. We need to find out. We need to take the top 7 D2 runners and D3 runners each and give them invites to create an all-star D2 and all-star D3 team and a race in the Power 5 championship. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be fun?
I thought you would say take top 7 D2, D3 runners, put them in a house, turn on the cameras, and things would get real.
And stop being polite.
Yeah, as narrated by Lincoln Schreike. I feel it's weird.
Cool.
Yeah, we should say we should have done it at the beginning.
How do you think a D2 All-Star team and a D3 All-Star team would do in a Power 5 only championship? Would they finish top 10?
A D2 All-Star team? Would they finish
D2 All-Star team would definitely finish top 10 for sure.
Yeah. Of course.
Would
D3 would probably be. See, you need Lincoln on right now. And speaking of Lincoln, by the way, congrats to him and his family, birth of their
official
child. Yeah, yesterday.
Boy or
congrats
girl?
To Lincoln. Health and happiness.
He had a child the day they He had a child the day they canceled D3 and D2 sports.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was crazy. Like, it was a weird. I texted him to our group chat, "Sorry, Lincoln," and I don't know if he meant. It was kind of bad timing on my part.
I was like, "Sorry, like you had a kid. Sorry."
No. Okay, so he hold on. He texted me on. Hold up. He texted me. Okay, yesterday he texted me that the baby was born last night. So that would have been 2 days ago. So the baby was born on the 4th, the evening of the 4th. And I texted a random "I'm sorry" to the group chat yesterday. So that's a full day later. I think I'm in the clear, right? I think it was clear what I was talking about. He's the D2, D3 guy. That's why I did it. If those of you who don't understand my terrible sense of timing. And
I was a little bit confused. I thought it was like, did something happen? I was a little bit confused.
You didn't immediately go to FloTrack and realize that I was talking about.
No, I was on a mountain. I was on a mountain.
There's like six people in the world who know more about D2 and D3 than Lincoln. So that's why I said, "I'm sorry, man. Like that sucks. Like that was a beat he was on and covering." But also,
he always remember the day.
Yes, exactly.
You know, people remember the day music died. He's gonna remember the day D2, D3 died. It's the day after the birth of his daughter. It's a girl, right?
August 4th, August 5th. So, Ollie Schreike, welcome to the world. On the topic of Ollies, though, Oliver Hoare announced yesterday he signed with On Running, training with
Look at that transition.
Joe Klecker in Colorado. I'm a professional. When I'm not dropping expensive electronics, I'm pretty good at this. We saw them run 356 and 358 miles. That is Hoare and Klecker, respectively. But he's joining that group with Dathan Ritzenheim that is growing quickly. The interesting thing to me, Gordon, with this is just how big this group is starting, how bold this group is starting. A lot of the other groups that we've seen in the United States, it starts with 2 people, 3 people, and then they trickle up. This one is starting with a splash, a big investment, some big names from the NCAA, and obviously a very high-profile runner turned coach in his first full-time gig as a coach. And I'm interested to see how Ritz does as a coach, almost as much as I'm interested to see how these athletes progress, because they're all good. All these athletes that are in this group, obviously, Klecker, Hoare, we know how accomplished they are. But they're not sure things. They're not sure things as pros. So we're going to be able to judge his coaching acumen quite quickly here.
Well, they're almost like they have blank resumes. I mean, because everything is thrown out once you hit the post collegiate world. I mean, yes, Oliver Hoare has some NCAA titles. Joe Klecker has some fast times and some All-American finishes. But, are you going to take what it's not proven. They're not like already like 2 to 3 year established pros. And it's kind of crazy to start in a pro group with zero pro experience, except for obviously the coach, which is kind of interesting, right? Normally you put a pro group together by like getting someone who like, I'm leaving Nike and I'm joining here, or I'm leaving here and coming here. But to start it all with fresh college kids is kind of a unique direction, I would say. Because there's going to be no one on the team no one on the team is going to be like, oh, this is what it's like to run at USA trials and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the couple of groups that I can think of. Joe Boschard's group came to it with not a bunch of experience. And then, of course, Danny Mackey, when he started Brooks Beast, his goal all along was to coach in college and applied to over 200 college coaching positions. He worked in, in sports science. Well, Boschard did, but Boschard himself, he started coaching Emma Coburn, and then they added like person by person. He had established
Emma Coburn wasn't right out of Colorado. She was like an established
No, I'm saying the coach themselves though. I'm saying the coach themselves. Coach didn't come. The coach didn't come with a whole bunch of experience with both Mackey and Boschard, as opposed to someone like Jerry Schumacher, who was coaching at the collegiate level for a bunch of years, goes to Nike, brings over from some guys from Wisconsin, and then it builds and builds from there. That's the comparison I was making. But you're right. The type of athlete is interesting too. They're all new pros. It's all fresh for everybody.
Yeah. Where are they? Where are they training? Colorado.
Yeah. Boulder. Hopefully there's enough tracks for them in the Bosch.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like you got the Colorado Buffaloes. You have Jenny Simpson. You have the Boschard group. Now you have this group. Is there enough real estate for them? Are they Is the town big enough for all three of them?
In the 90s, Boulder was the place. That's like where you heard. That's kind of how Flagstaff is now in terms of people going to train, at least from the outside. Like that was the one city that I knew about growing up. And I was first getting into distance running and learning as much as I could about it. I was like, oh, there's this place called Boulder. It's like where all the fast people train, and people come from all over the world. And there's these training groups, and like the altitude makes you super fast. There was a mythology around it. And I think some of that drifted away when people moved away for a variety of reasons. I don't know why. I guess now it's making a bit of a comeback with all these groups being located there. The university being really good in distance running doesn't hurt, but yeah, Boulder's a place to be again.
I want to know what the dynamic is going to be between Oliver Hoare of On Running with Morgan McDonald with the Bossard group, right? You have that dynamic, and then you have the dynamic of Joe Klecker On Running with Danny Jones, the Bossard group. It's like a little bit of we were teammates for 4 to 5 years, and now we're rivals. Not that they're real rivals, but it's kind of interesting that the two, like when you think of Wisconsin running the past like 4 years, it was McDonald was the 5K guy, Hoare was the miler, and they were just like neck and neck with each other in workouts. They always go 1-2 in races, and now they're both in the same location, but two different groups. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. And it's a little bit easier to make an Australian team, but not that much easier. They're still pretty good. Like Stuart McSwain, McDonald, et cetera, et cetera. They got a lot of talent in Australia too. But Klecker's going to have a tough task trying to get on a team. I think almost the 10th out. Like if he moves to the 10, that might be better. Just because if Chalimo doesn't run the 10. There's a little bit more space there in the future, I think. There's not a clear number one.
But, I mean, right now the men's 5K, it's like deep but not deep at the same time. Because I also feel like everyone is kind of equal. I don't see a true top 3, And I just think that as time goes on, I mean, Lopez Lamong is getting old, right? Lopez Lamong, I mean, I might bite my words, but he's not going to be top 3 in 2024. Right? Like he's not, right? Or is he? Is he going to be able to keep this going for another 4 years?
4 years would be a long time. But who do you feel better about as a number one? Chelimo in the 5 or Lamong in the 10? You feel better about Chelimo in the 5, right? So that's why I think a 10. And then you have people like Leonard Career, who's also doing the marathon, not a full-time 10,000 meter person.
But he's back at the 10 now because he didn't make the marathon.
Right. But I'm just saying, I think a 10, neither team is easy to make, but I think the 10 for the U.S. men would be easier than the 5 in 2021. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I feel like the 2021 10, well, the 21, I would say the 2021 10 team is Lopez, Shadrack, and Career, right? Those are your
those would be the favorites. Those would be the favorites, yeah. But
so that again, is that harder to crack than Lopez, Chelimo, Hassan Mead?
Well, it's just the depth. It's just the depth. Because then you got to think about like Jenkins, and then you have to think about Woody Kincaid and Fisher and McGordy, who've run 13:11 this summer. Ryan Hill, maybe he's got another run in him. There's more people there. I think in the 10, I think those 3 would be the favorite. But if anything happens to them, there's a bit of a drop off.
I just think that 10 is always. I think the 10, yes, on World Championship years, but I feel like the 10 during Olympic years, everyone does it, right? Like Hassan Mead will probably do the 10, right? And then Ben Chu will probably do it. You know, you saw what's his name did Lagat did it. Eric Jenkins, Jenkins will do the 10. Like they're all going to do the 10. Like everyone's going to be like, we need 2 shots at it, right? So they're all going to do it, and then they realize they're in 5th place with 2 laps to go and can't catch, and they drop out, right? So that's what they all did, right? They all like dropped out because of the heat.
Oh man, that was the wildest race. That was like one of the wildest track races I've ever seen. That was so weird. Everybody jumping out. Hassan Mead took off his, I think it was either his sunglasses or his hat, threw him on the ground right in front of the main grandstand. I was like, what in the world is going on right now? You could not tell. It was like a high school race because there was so much lapping going on and everybody was at all places on the track. It was, it was a hot mess. And the fact that Lagat came back from that and then qualified at the end of the meet was remarkable because I was like, okay, this is it. He's done. He may not even show up for the 5,000, and he freaking came back and won it. That was just sensational. Yes, you're right. I guess there's no point in arguing this or debating it because everybody's probably if you're going to run the 5, you're going to run the 10, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you wouldn't do it. Double your chances, with the exception, I think, of someone like Chelimo who would go in, or Kincaid who would go in confident that they could make the 5,000 meter team.
Here's a thought on Running's investment, right? They are a Swiss company, so I always think, I mean, maybe this is American bias, but you know, like Bowerman Track Club, it's like it's not all, it's mainly Americans, but like the foundation is based around like basically what I'm trying to say is like American distance running is maybe more easier to sell and sexier than one-off international athletes. Would you disagree or agree, right? Because as good as someone like a Maury McDonald is or Mohamed is, if an American does what they do, it gets bigger headlines. You know what I mean? That makes sense?
Well, yeah. I think it's about visibility though. Also,
like when Shelby and Mo ran both great times, I feel like people were more drawn to Shelby's mark than Mo's mark, even though you could maybe say maybe Mo's mark was better.
You're talking about in the United States?
Yeah, in the United States. United States.
There's a couple things to factor in, right? Yeah, we're looking at it from the U.S. perspective. Maybe they're trying to capture a different audience or a larger audience where, having someone be the best in the world. I mean, people are pretty into I think if you're good enough, it doesn't matter because people are pretty into what Mo Farah was doing when it came to NOP.
Yeah.
Even though he was
British. Hassan. Yeah.
Yeah. 2, I think that the second most high-profile meet in the year is the Olympic trials in the United States. So you want the visibility of them there. And also, that's when you can still wear your brand. You know, once you go to the Olympics, you're in the Nike kit. So having somebody competing in the Olympic trials wearing that gear is valuable to a company, and international athletes obviously aren't running in that meet. They're running in their biggest, probably a chance to get on TV would be pre-classic before the Olympics. That would be the biggest event. I'm not counting road races for this. But the pre-classic, that pales in comparison in terms of interest to the Olympic trials. So that I think that's what when you're investing in an athlete in an Olympic cycle, like you're probably honing in on a couple key meets. And in the United States, one of those meets would be the trials.
Yeah,
but like if Mohamed starts winning gold medals, if like Ahmed or whatever starts winning gold medals, or Joe Klecker, or not Joe Klecker, if Oliver Hoare starts winning gold medals, I don't think it matters.
Doesn't matter
at that point.
Yeah. Because then but the question is, like, not everyone's going to win gold medals, though, right? Like, most of the athletes you sponsor aren't going to go on to be all-time greats. Like, most athletes' careers at best are going to be like, hey, you made 2 to 3 world teams, and you might have got one bronze, but the rest of them you're getting like 5th to 12th, whatever. That's like a great career. So, I just think, I think it is a struggle that a lot of the international athletes have to do, because they're raised into the U.S. NCAA system, so they kind of get a little bit of notoriety. Notoriety? No, oh my God.
Notoriety.
You know what I'm trying to say. Notoriety.
Okay,
I'm not even going to say it. In the U.S., so like Americans start knowing who Oliver Hoare is. They know who Edward Cheserek is. They know who Morgan McDonald is, or Pat Tiernan. But then I feel like once they cross into the pro world, their fame kind of dwindles a bit, because people are more keeping track of who's the best 3 Americans in the event that they compete in.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair from like a fan perspective. Yeah, it's like you associated Pat Tiernan with Villanova. So then once he stops racing for Villanova and he's racing for Australia, and you don't see him as much, and then you don't see him winning as much either, because he's running against harder competition, so he's just not going to win as much. They're not in the headlines anymore. Yeah. And same thing with Morgan McDonald. The same thing with Morgan McDonald, right? Like wins and wins and wins at Wisconsin. He ran fine in Doha, but there's 10 other stories that are bigger than that. I just think people are drawn to whoever's the best. And then whenever even if you're talking about high school, you're talking about college, whatever level you're looking at, people are drawn to the best. And if you stay the best, none of it matters. But when you are then all of a sudden the 6th best person in the pros, it didn't really matter what you did in the NCAAs anymore. I mean, I don't know. I just remember being in Doha and like, oh yeah, Morgan McDonald's in this 5K. It wasn't even front of mind thought, and it wasn't to be dismissive of it, but it's just like, this is a bigger stage. This isn't Nutty Comb. This isn't NCAA Cross. Look at all these other big names that are in this race.
Email the pod, FloTrack podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. I got a question for Alon, our producer. Alon, are you there? Alon, can you hear us?
Yes.
Can the people hear you? Do you know any place that will fix iPhones for cheap? Do you happen to know that? Do you know a guy?
Nope. You're on your own for that one. Although I'm pretty sure if you drive up 35 here in Austin, you're going to find any cell phone repair shop, though I don't know if they're open or not, but
Okay.
How bad is it? Show it to the camera.
It's just the bottom corner right there.
Ooh, yeah. I'm sorry.
I can live with it. I dropped it once. So one time I was at a high school graduation and I dropped it, and it was like the entire thing. And I know there's like legitimate places that'll do it. Like there's name brand cell phone repair places that'll do it. But there's also just like the guy. Like, I want to find the guy. That's who I want to find, because
I will say this.
A little short on cash this month.
Well, I did have a broken phone that I took to like a Walmart. They have like the little cell phone repair shop on a Walmart. Dude fixed it up for like $200, and it like the phone was pretty fucked up, and he fixed it up, and it was pretty solid. So it still works today.
Okay, I might need to find that guy.
A producer also, dropping an F-bomb on the podcast.
Yeah,
whoa.
Yeah, getting us an explicit tag right here in the last couple minutes. Apologize to anybody who's listening in the car with kids. It's not just Gordon you have to worry about.
That's what you get for getting me on here. This is your fault, not mine.
I apologize. No, well done, Alon. We'll have to have him back on. Okay, any last thoughts here Gordon?
I'm looking up. Check this out. NCAA will establish a phone number and email to allow college athletes, parents, and or others to report alleged failures of following COVID protocols. Ooh.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
What team is the most likely to rat out another team? That's the question.
Well, this is why they're not going to want to bring teams together, because they're just going to report on everybody.
People will be sneaking into other teams' tents.
They're not social distancing. I want to read one email before we go, because you talked about Christmas tree spikes before. We got an email from George. It says, "Dear Gordon, I'm so disappointed at you for sharing with the FloTrack audience that Christmas tree spikes are illegal and not allowed to be used anywhere. Shame, shame, shame." Just to point out one example, the Armory track spike policy below clearly states Christmas tree spikes are allowed. In addition, Christmas tree spikes are recommended on Super X and Mondo track surfaces. See bulletin below. Keep up the good work.
Damn. I just got owned.
Exposed. Wow. No. Gordon's like, no track allows Christmas tree spikes except the most famous indoor track in the country. But other than that, no one allows
then
it.
Maybe it's needle spikes I was thinking of. Maybe it's needle.
Get 'em. Maybe.
There's like 3 different types. There's the normal, there's like the cone, there's Christmas tree, and then there's needle. Maybe it's the needle ones that are illegal everywhere.
Well,
stop making needle spikes.
Policy.
That's what I meant to say. Stop making needle spikes.
Well, I'm looking at this Armory spike policy. Only acceptable ones are 1/4 inch pyramid spikes or 1/4 inch Christmas tree. No pin and needle spikes allowed. Now I'm looking at the Mondo ones. Yeah, needle spikes are not allowed on either of these bulletins. So
then why do they make needle spikes? Also, why do they make spikes that are
that's a dirt spike thing. A dirt track thing, I think. Oh. Needle spikes are someone who's from a previous generation than me can write in, but I believe needle spikes are a relic of that era, and they still make them because there are still dirt tracks out there, especially outside the United States.
Someone got Prefontaine's old spikes and laced them up in a high school dual meet. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate the email because I don't want to be alone in telling Gordon he's an idiot. So that's good. All right. For the explicit Alon, thank you for producing. And for my co-host, Gordon Mack, thanks everyone for tuning in. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. Please go out and rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Also, you can find it on Spotify and Google Podcasts. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.